In this video, I'm going to be talking about the three common things that I see strong men with secure marriages do again and again and again in order to make their wives feel safe and happy in the relationship and make themselves feel like they're actually living a marriage and living in a relationship that they're excited and proud to be a part of. If you're a man and you're married, you're over 40 years old, typically 50, 60 years old, even, it's very easy to get lost in the shuffle and not understand where things have gone wrong, why there's a lack of affection, why there's too much conflict, or a lack of accurate and effective communication in your relationship. And while there are a number of tools and there are a number of ways to diagnose where things may have gone off track, the thing that you need to know is, well, what do the men who have happy marriages, what do they do proactively? What do they do that actually make sure things don't go off the rails? If you're new here, my name is Dr. John DeBach. I'm a couples counselor and relationship coach. I've been doing this for nearly a decade and a half. I have a social media following of over 1 million people that I've grown just in the last year without spending a dollar on ads, all by telling you the real truth that I've seen after coaching and working with thousands, literally thousands of couples and men specifically who want to get the relationship that they actually envision and not just the one they have to settle for. I always tell people the biggest qualification, though, isn't the PhD. It's not the thousands of hours of the social media following. It's me being in a very happy marriage. I've learned more from my own marriage than I have from any book I've ever read, any degree I've ever pursued, any certification that I've gone through, because living it and being there with kids who struggle, with a wife who struggles, with all that kind of stuff, that is, battlefield tested stuff. And there are a lot of people who talk about this without actually being married who are on YouTube and or having long relationships or having children. And it's a different ball game. I mean, a marriage with and without kids, different ball game. A marriage with one kid versus two, three, four kids like me, different ball game. And I think you'll be able to attest that if you're sitting here watching that. Okay, so the first thing that I think we need to talk about is that strong men, and I hope this is you. I hope that if it's not you yet, I hope this is something you aspire to be. But strong men realize that the kind of relationship they want from their wives needs to be specific. Now, what do I mean by that? We put too much pressure on each other in today's society. It used to be that if you were married, you had your friends, you had your wife or husband, you had your priest or rabbi or imam or whatever for some spiritual guidance. You had your work, right? We outsourced parts of our lives. You had your hobbies and passions, and we didn't put the pressure of being everything on one person who's already spread thin in so many other areas of our life, right? We didn't do that. And now today, it's harder than ever for women to be your therapist, your maid, your cook, your co-partner in business oftentimes, although I know a lot of you, and this might be you listening, have a very successful business. A lot of my clients tend to be business owners for one reason or another, probably because I've owned my own business for 15 years. But there's a lot of pressure for them to kind of check every box. And the pressure isn't something that you've probably put on her consciously. It's a reflection, because women do this too. It used to be that they understand the man's role as the provider and obviously a sexual partner, and then an occasional other stuff. But today, there's this expectation of being somebody's best friend. And I'll be honest, my wife, I love my wife, Michelle. She's amazing. She's the best woman in the world, psychologist, brilliant, great mom. She is my best friend. But I don't think that's right for every relationship. I think that yes, it's great to have, but you also have to have somebody else outside the relationship who's a best friend. Who are you going to complain to? Who are you going to vent to? Who are you going to share other visions and dreams and hobbies with? It can't just be in the marriage. You need to have life outside of the marriage. So strong men learn how to plug themselves in to other places. They have friends. Oftentimes they have a therapist or a coach, or they have a religious leader, or in addition to that, they'll have a religious spiritual guide like a rabbi, priest, etc. They also have passions and hobbies, and they take their work very seriously, and they have a lot of fulfillment from that. The healthiest relationship, the healthiest relationship, believe it or not, are two people who don't need the relationship. If either one of you needs the relationship, you're pulling it down with a lot of weight. And so you should be, believe it or not, this is, and a lot of therapists are going to totally disagree with me on this, but you should be completely capable to walk away from your marriage. And yes, it would suck. And yes, it would be sad. But you should have this feeling that I will be okay. I'll be fine. It will hurt and it will suck and it will be tough. But I have friends. I have passions. I have my spiritual relationship, or, whatever my intellectual pursuits are. I'm going to be okay. And I could probably find love again. If you have two people like that who are in a marriage, guess what? Now they're in the marriage because they want to be in the marriage, not because they need it. Whenever there's a need, and it's a desperate need, you kind of bleed into anxious attachment style, avoidant attachment style. You have, disorganized attachment style. If these terms are new to you, you can watch some of my other videos where I explain them, but there's this like desperation of like, and what happens when you have a need is there's an expectation, and that expectation is almost never met. And so there's resentment that comes into the relationship where you feel like, well, my wife's not fulfilling my sexual needs. She's not, the house is never clean. My expectation was that if you were alone, you'd clean the house yourself or you'd hire out, right? Most of the problems in your relationship outside of the bedroom, I should say that, but most of the problems that exist in a relationship outside of the bedroom can be fulfilled by you doing it in your own way. It doesn't have to be to their standards, or hiring out, or ignoring it. And you'll see this quite palpably when your partner's out of town. When your partner's out of town, if you travel for business, your wife is taking care of everything while you're away. She kind of doesn't need you, right? If you have ever had the experience where she travels to visit family or goes out of town, the house doesn't fall down when she's gone. Are you lonely? Yeah, of course. We all get lonely without our partner if you're in a loving relationship, right? But there's also a sense of relief. Why? Because you're holding on to these expectations. You don't need that. You need to find out how to make your life full outside of the marriage. The other thing that strong men do is they have a vision. They have a vision of what they want their relationship to look like, what they want their relationship to feel like, and they have a vision of what they want their own lives as a family, right? But from their perspective, what it's going to look like financially, geographically, right? In terms of how they split up the time, they have a vision they're working towards. Oftentimes, it is connected to some business pursuits, which is great. Listen, ambition needs a plan, ambition needs a vision. And yes, the world runs on money, and you have to live with that reality. I hate when people say, hey, money's not everything. It's like, yeah, it isn't, but it's kind of how everything works right now in the world, right? You need a baseline, and then you have your comfort, and then you have your luxury, and you're going to be somewhere in between. If you get below here, everything becomes about survival, and your relationship takes a backseat. If you're above here, then it depends where your head is at. So if you have a vision of what you want it to be, maybe you want to go on vacation a few times a year. You want to go on one date once a week with your wife to a restaurant you enjoy or an event, right? You want to have sex a certain amount of times a week. You want the sex to feel a certain way. You want to have her initiate sometimes, or you're comfortable initiating. There's a vision of what you're actually hoping for. And oftentimes, I have this other video that you can look up about the 10 different ways I break down connection in relationships, and in a marriage you usually have at least 8. And so this goes over different things: social, sexual, family, finances, etc. Right? There's different categories, and you have a vision of what that looks like. Strong men take time and make the vision. You'll ever notice, right? The difference between an employee and a CEO is the employee shows up and does what they're told. A CEO sits, plans, and then directs that in motion. Most men do that in almost every other part of their life. They go on a weight loss journey. They have a goal for the weight loss and how they're going to get there. They have a business journey that they're going on. They have a goal and how they're going to get there. We don't do it for our marriages, most of us. We just don't. And maybe it's because we've never taken the time, or maybe because we don't know what that vision looks like. If you're having problems with the vision, I would recommend watching some of my other content about the different categories and actually sitting down and planning. But strong men have that vision. And then finally, the last thing is they make time for vulnerability. Now, I'm phrasing that a very specific way because vulnerability is an asset, right? But it has to be in a container. Women don't want to hear all your freaking problems. Neither do men, by the way. As listen, I love my wife more than anything in the world. If she came to me and told me all of her problems, I'd be like, it's a lot of problems, right? We want people who are self-sufficient, but we don't want to be boxed down. So that we make time to share the most pronounced problems that won't overwhelm our partners and say, I'm struggling with this. And we do it in a safe space, not while they're working, not while they're trying to take care of the kids, not while they're planning a trip away. We say, hey, you have time to talk. That's sometimes it's a date, sometimes it's pillow talk before you go to bed. But we make time to let them into our world and we contain that time so it's not overwhelming. That's what strong men do. If you're enjoying this kind of content, please hit like and subscribe. And if you're interested in working with me, there's information in the description below, whether it's one-on-one or I'm working on getting another exclusive small men's group of really high achieving, excited men who want to improve their marriage. Usually it's men in their 40s to 60s. So if you're interested, information is below. Thanks so much.